One night in the mid-90s, two teenagers, Calvin Halster, aged 15, and his little brother Marty, aged 12, were playing their favorite game, Street Fighter. Suddenly, they heard the front door open. Their father had come back early from his job at the paper factory. "Hey, boys," their dad said, wiping his forehead with a red handkerchief. "I just picked up that PlayStation you asked for. Thought you'd be in bed by now, but I guess not." He handed them a large box. Both boys instantly forgot about their video game and tore off the wrapping paper to reveal the shiny new PlayStation and the game, Street Fighter Alpha 3. "Thanks, Dad," said Calvin, hugging him. "You're the best." "It's the ultimate Street Fighter game," added Marty. "We can finally play as Ken and Ryu, and the graphics are awesome." "Yeah, it'll be fun until your mother gets back," their dad said with a grin. "She's gonna kill us if she sees we stayed up again." The three of them set up the PlayStation in the living room and plugged it in. After popping the disc into the machine, Calvin selected his favorite character, Badon, while Marty chose Zangief. As the iconic Street Fighter music filled the room, they played the game from dusk till dawn. But soon it was time for the boys to go to bed. "Okay, boys, lights out," said their dad, turning off the overhead light. "You can still hear me playing after you fall asleep." Calvin and Marty agreed, but they kept asking for just one more game until they finally gave in and went to bed, leaving their dad alone in the living room. In the darkness, a strange sound could be heard. It was a knock coming from the TV set. First it was soft, then it grew louder, like someone was knocking the glass right off the screen. The knock became so loud that it sounded like someone was knocking on the other side of the door. Calvin and Marty slept through it, but their father wasn't so lucky. He slowly got up from the couch, grabbed his trusty Smith & Wesson pistol, and walked toward the television set. Peeking over the edge of the couch, he looked around the living room to see if he could find the source of the noise. But there was nothing there. He walked closer to the TV and he could have sworn he saw the outline of a man on the other side of the screen. Startled, he fired several shots at the television, but they seemed to pass right through it. Was he going crazy? Had he been working too hard lately? Maybe he should have retired from the force. The knocking stopped, but suddenly the TV turned on by itself. Their dad screamed and jumped back as the static filled the screen. But as quickly as it started, it stopped and a message appeared. At first it was unreadable, just static. Then, as if by magic, it began to form words. "Face the ultimate challenge," they read. "Defeat Sheng Long." Below the message, a picture of a fierce-looking fighter appeared. He was muscular and wore a dark blue gi. Their dad had never seen that character before. Was it some kind of sick joke played by one of the boys? He knew they had spent a lot of time playing this game, but it didn't look like anything they would have created. Still, it probably was some kind of prank. He opened the front door and yelled, "Who did this?" But no one answered. He turned back to the TV and saw that the character was now moving, doing a series of jumping jacks and practicing martial arts moves. Their dad felt a chill run down his spine. Could this thing come out of the TV? He thought it was ridiculous. How could anyone believe such a silly story? Yet he couldn't help but feel uneasy. In the bedroom, Calvin woke up in a cold sweat. He had just had a nightmare about being chased by a monster through a dark forest. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. He turned to Marty, who was still sleeping soundly, and reached out to touch his shoulder. But as his hand made contact, he felt something wet and cold. It was Marty's blood. Calvin screamed and jumped out of bed. As he turned on the light, he saw that Marty's pillowcase was soaked in blood. But that was impossible. His brother was still sleeping. Confused and frightened, Calvin ran to the bathroom to get a better look at his brother's bloody pillowcase. But when he turned on the light, Marty was gone. He ran back to the bedroom to find his little brother missing. At that moment, Calvin's parents walked in. "What's all the commotion?" Their mom asked. "Where's Marty?" Calvin replied, his voice shaking. "He was here a second ago, but now he's gone." Their mother and father began searching for Marty, but he was nowhere to be found. They checked under the bed, in the closet, and even outside in the backyard. But there was no sign of their son. Just then, Calvin remembered the TV message. Could it be true? Could his brother have been taken by their mysterious Sheng Long? Calvin and his parents raced to the living room to check on the TV. But when they arrived, they found it was completely dark. Someone had unplugged it and the room was silent. As the hours passed, the family's fear grew. They searched the entire house for Marty, but they couldn't find him anywhere. Had he run away from home? But why? He'd never done anything like that before. Just when they were about to give up hope, they heard a noise coming from the living room. They froze. Was it really Sheng Long? Cautiously, they crept toward the sound and peeked around the corner. To their surprise, they saw their dad sitting on the couch playing Street Fighter. "Dad, what are you doing?" Calvin asked. "Where's Mom?" "She went to call the police," their dad replied, his eyes fixed on the TV screen. "He thinks we need help finding Marty." Calvin was confused. Why was his dad playing the game if he believed Sheng Long was real? Suddenly, their dad stood up. "I think I know where Marty is," he said. Without another word, he got up from the couch and headed back to the TV. He pressed the power button and the familiar Street Fighter theme song filled the room. On the screen, Sheng Long was waiting for his next move. "Come on, Sheng Long," their dad said. "Let my son go." As he played the game, he moved with lightning speed, punching and kicking the buttons to select special moves. Every time he landed a hit on Sheng Long, he could hear Marty scream in pain. Was he inside the television? Was he holding on to Marty's life force? The fight continued for what seemed like hours. Finally, their dad was victorious. And as Sheng Long's image disappeared from the screen, he heard a loud crash from the other room. He quickly ran to investigate. There he saw Marty lying on the floor, unconscious and bleeding. He was still alive, but barely. "Marty?" he cried, rushing to his side. "Are you okay?" But Marty didn't respond. Their dad called 911 and Marty was rushed to the hospital. The doctors did everything they could, but Marty was brain dead and on life support. Their dad sat by his bedside, holding his hand and whispering words of encouragement. But deep down, he knew his son wouldn't make it. As the hours passed, Marty's condition worsened. His breathing became more shallow and his heart rate slowed down. Finally, at 6 a.m., Marty was pronounced dead. Their dad felt his knees buckle, and he collapsed onto the nearest chair, sobbing uncontrollably. At the funeral, Calvin stood by his dad's side as he laid his brother's coffin in the ground. The two of them were numb with grief and anger. Who was Sheng Long, and how had he taken Marty away from them? As the days went by, Calvin and his dad tried to move on with their lives. But the memory of Marty would haunt them forever. One night, Calvin was playing Street Fighter with a friend when he saw an all-too-familiar character pop onto the screen. It was Sheng Long. "No," Calvin whispered, his heart pounding. "You're not real." But Sheng Long just smiled mysteriously and waited for Calvin to make his next move. And so the legend of Sheng Long continued. Some say he was just a figment of people's imaginations. Others claimed he was a real-life killer who used the game as a front to lure his victims into his trap. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. If you ever see the message on the screen, face the ultimate challenge. Defeat Sheng Long. Don't accept it. You may just end up in a world of hurt,